Okay, we're talking tonight specifically about Assad and Assad's situation, and we want to try and get this video to some reputable local journalists to have a look at and see if they can really voice the concerns that we've got about the situation that Assad's in. So if you could just talk about Assad to the camera so that people know exactly what's happening here, Mufassal, and who Assad is, right, and what his situation is and why he's in that situation.
Assad is a Bangladeshi young man. He's about 25 years of age, and he's an engineer by profession. He's an ex-Muslim. He's an online activist, a blogger, and he's a free thinker, and he's a well-known individual. He is also closely associated with me in online activities. In a way, I can say I assumed the role of one of his teachers in some aspects of free thinking. A very brave young man, and Assad has recently been detained by Bangladeshi government.
Could you just go into exactly what he's been detained for? Because obviously, if it was in the United Kingdom, he wouldn't have been detained. So if you could just explain exactly why they've detained him and what reasons they're giving for arresting him.
We don't have all the detailed specifics yet, but so far we have gathered that he was arrested under Section 57 of the ICT laws of Bangladesh, which is a draconian law, a law which is used to enforce blasphemy provisions in the Bangladeshi legal system.
So basically, Assad's been arrested for speaking out against Islam,
yeah,
as an ex-Muslim. I mean, he's not speaking out against Islam as a Christian or as a Buddhist. He's coming from an ex-Muslim point of view,
yeah,
and he was just voicing his opinions and his concerns about the dangers of radical Islam and literalist Islam, and this is what he's been arrested for.
Yes, and whilst he was doing it, he was also criticizing the Bangladeshi government for failing to protect ex-Muslims and for failing to protect free thinkers, freedom of speech. So he was also criticizing Bangladeshi government for that. So Section 57 of the ICT Act, which is a draconian law, in fact was promulgated in 2006 by the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which is now the opposition party, and Bangladesh Nationalist Party is in alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami political party. Jamaat-e-Islami, as we spoke on previous occasions, is nothing but an Islamist group, and they have wings all over the world.
Just to put that into a bit of context, Jamaat al-Islami and some of the founders of Jamaat al-Islami are actually in prison under sentence of death in Bangladesh as well for war crimes they committed in the civil war in 1971. Is that
That's correct?
Yeah. So it's not just an Islamist party; it has been associated with Islamist violence and murder in the name of Islam.
Genocide. They were.
How many people died in the civil war?
3 million.
3 million people. So it's not
and hundreds and thousands of women were raped.
Were raped. Yeah, there was mass rape on an industrial scale. So in getting back to Assad, because obviously Assad's the person that we want to really talk about tonight. How much danger is Assad in? And if you could put that into the context of other incidents that have happened in Bangladesh in recent years with intellectuals and people who have been speaking out against radical Islam and against the Islamist parties and against the government.
Bangladesh police, unfortunately, is one of the most corrupt police forces in the world. In many of the cases, Bangladesh, not only police, other law enforcing agencies work with immunity. I'll give an example. Under this draconian law, if any officer arrests someone, he enjoys immunity from any kind of prosecution. So that's one. And others, we have other laws like a Special Powers Act, which are frequently used by all government in the past and is still being used. And also, Bangladeshi Bangladesh law enforcement agencies have thus far failed to find many people who have gone missing in Bangladesh, including one member of the parliament, went missing. Now, many of the, I would say, human rights activists think that Bangladesh law enforcement agencies either did play a role in those missing cases, or they failed definitely in finding those missing persons. I am aware of many of my friends who, in fact, were, mysteriously died whilst in police custody.
And were these ex-Muslims? These were people that were protesting against the government, or
no, there are,
or were they Muslims? Or?
There were many occasions where critics of Bangladesh government were detained and under this draconian law, including one of the free thinkers recently, and he has sought asylum in other countries. Yes, this law was used.
And he
in the
disappeared
past.
as well, or was he?
No, he didn't disappear, but he eventually was able to move to other countries.
So he got to another country.
He
right?
got
so
away,
he
yes.
got out and he escaped.
Yes.
And could I mean?
There are, sorry to interrupt, there are 700 people who were charged under Section 57 in 2013 alone.
Where are they now? Are they still in prison?
Many of them are, yes, and many of them are in hiding. Many of them have gone abroad. They're on their own.
And that Section 57, if memory serves me right, it basically states that if you hurt the feelings of a religious person or a religion, you're liable to prosecution.
Yes.
So it is absolutely a blasphemy law.
It is, and there are terminologies used in the provisions which are vague. For example, it uses terminologies like obscene.
Yeah.
What is obscene?
Exactly.
Or lie. What false? What is false?
So in terms of
if you cannot challenge it,
obviously the pressing issue at the moment that we've got is Assad. I mean, we were trying to help Assad get political asylum, and obviously that's now gone drastically, been set back by this arrest. Is he in very real danger?
He is in very serious danger because atrocities and brutalities and torture on detainees is very common in Bangladesh.
And would there be Islamists in the security forces and the police and the army in Bangladesh?
Of course.
So it's fully infiltrated by extremists.
Of course.
So what, if we manage to get publicity for Assad and tell his story in the West, what could that do to help him?
First of all,
does he have any connections in England or the UK apart from you, or has he any family connections?
We have friends, as you know, but I also had a online group called Boba. So Boba activists are everywhere in the world, and many of the Boba activists have already voiced concern, and they have started movement even in the UK. We are about to hold a rally in front of Bangladesh embassy. So this is going to happen, and we are trying to knock doors, but what we have thus far seen, we appreciate some of the mainstream media have picked up on it, especially newspapers, including Daily Mail, and other news media have started taking the story. But we will need more attention because we need television attention on this.
And you could, I suppose, you could give a lot more depth in the story as well, even for print media. If print journalists were managing to get this story, you could give them a lot of background and explain exactly what the situation is in Bangladesh and why it's so dangerous for Assad to be sitting there in a Bangladeshi prison.
Assad would have been seriously tortured. Assad might have been killed by now if I was not able to bring this story straight to the public through social media. And once, because when I brought this news to the social media, it blasted. Thousands of people came to know that Assad was arrested. And I had feared for his life that Bangladesh government would have got rid of him because he's a headache. And I have video footage where Islamists, hundreds, not thousands, hundreds of thousands of Islamists chanting for Assad death every day. I have video footage to prove that. So if Assad comes out, we are still fearful of
He's
his
still,
life.
he's still in grave danger.
Yes.
So, if you were talking to journalists, if we could get this video to some reputable journalists, just wait for it.
Yeah.
Stop. So if you were talking to some journalists now, and you could, you know, implore them to do something, what would you be asking the journalists to do? What would be the story that you would say that you've got for them, and what effect could that story have on Assad's situation?
We want
in the future?
huge international attention regarding the sufferings of free thinkers, not only ex-Muslims, free thinkers, liberal thinkers in Bangladesh.
Liberal Muslims as well.
Or
but
liberal
yeah,
Muslims as well.
You know, but this isn't an anti-Muslim
Yes.
thing. This is basically people who want to have freedom of speech and freedom of thought, and to be able to critique their religion
Yes.
like you would in the West,
Yes.
and do it freely without oppression.
But surprisingly, the Muslim leaders in the West, there are many Muslim leaders even in the UK, they are not voicing their concern about this. Why? Because their fellow Muslims are trying to kill Assad. Thousands of Islamists are out there to have Assad's blood on their hands. And how come leaders from Islamic Forum of Europe, Muslim Council of Britain, who have voice, who have authority, you know, I'm not hearing that they are voicing their concern about Assad's situation. And why rather we see many of their activists chanting slogans for Assad to be killed, living right here in the UK, living in Portugal,
So people-
living in Florida.
So people in the West are calling for Assad to be killed as well. So it's not
Muslims,
just
yes,
yeah.
there are asylum seekers in Portugal. I'm going to Portugal soon. Asylum seekers in Portugal who have built up a network of Islamists online, having connections in Florida, having connections in Portugal, having connections in South Korea, having connections in Germany. I can prove all that.
And these
And
people.
they're systematically putting up posts, videos, calling Assad and me to be killed. Yes.
So I mean, to me, this is a big story that needs to be told, and it's a story about human rights and freedom of conscience, freedom of speech, freedom to disavow a religion, or freedom to change your religion, or even examine your own religion. And this is a story that I don't think's been told enough in the UK, and it's something that we're certainly very passionate about. And again, just you know, if we can get these videos at the hands of any journalists, Mufassal will explain in a lot more detail what he's been through and what other ex-Muslims in the UK and obviously in Muslim countries are going through as well. And you know, I just think it's a story that has to be told. So we're going to try and get these videos to some journalists. They're not very long. We're going to finish them there. And if you can do anything to tell this story, I think you'll be doing a service not just to Assad and Mufassal, but to humanity as a whole. Thank you.